Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to SpeakPact. We are so happy to have you with us today. We are live streaming, and this, of course, will be on all of your favorite podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Today, my guest is Shep Hyken. He has taken something that might seem pretty routine, but obviously vital to commerce everywhere: customer relations, customer service, customer experience, as well as employee experience. And he has made an incredible career. He is a keynote speaker. He is an author of 8 books. He's a New York Times bestseller. And I would just like to know, Shep, first of all, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
And you've got that great radio voice. Tell us what came first. Did a great book come first, and all of a sudden you're getting your speaking engagements? Like, where did you take this knowledge that you had become an expert in, and decide to take it maybe outside of the normal walls of a business?
Sure. Well, I started a long time ago. I'll tell you when it was, 1983. I know I look much younger than that. So I've been at this 41 years. And it took about 6 years before I wrote the book. So I started out speaker, not even thinking about a book. And then I joined the National Speakers Association in 1988 and met some people. And about a year later, I had written the book. I took my speech, transcribed it. Actually, it was probably around 1990. Transcribed it and said, okay, there's the bare bones of the book. Let's fill in more examples. And next thing you know, I had the book self-published. And to this day, it's probably my number one best-selling book, just because it's been around for so long, but probably several 100,000 copies are out there. And because it's self-published, I have total control how it gets sold. I did some pretty clever things back in the day. I would just grab a stack of books and walk into a bookstore and just stick them in the bookshelf and walk away. That was referred to, instead of shoplifting, somebody said, that's shop gifting. I go, yeah, it works. I did it at all the airport bookstores, and it was really amazing that I would drop a few books off on the shelf, and then a month later I would get an order from the company saying, we need to buy books, and there you go. So it's crazy.
That is brilliant. Talk about creative marketing.
It wasn't
That's amazing.
Somebody gave me that idea at NSA, again, National Speakers Association, for those that don't know that. But who doesn't know that?
So was that the I'll Be Back book?
No, that was the most recent book. That's Moments of Magic. And to this day, I talked about how do you create that moment of magic in a great experience. And to this day, I did a speech just yesterday in Las Vegas. And tip number 2 was manage the moment, avoid misery, avoid mediocrity, and create magic. Still doing it.
So good. So tell me about, so you joined NSA, you were amazing at getting your books out there, right? You wrote a book, you got them out there. How did you become an expert in customer experience, customer service, employee experience? Were you a CEO? Did you take it in college? Was it just an interest of yours and you ran with it? Like, tell us about your humble beginnings.
Well, the humble beginnings start when I'm age 12, doing a birthday party magic show, which still magic is my hobby. And I came back. My mom said, write a thank you note. My dad says, call next week, make sure they're happy, get some feedback, find out what tricks they like the best. if they aren't talking about certain tricks, get rid of those and replace them with tricks that work. And I had no ideas as I finally did understand that's called showing appreciation, getting feedback, operationalizing the feedback, creating a better product. It's all business. It's just as a 12-year-old, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm making a better show. I'm making the parents happy that are hiring me, and I'm getting booked more. And so when I graduated college, and by the way, I had other jobs through summer and through college. When I graduated college, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I thought I'd be in the family business, but about 4 months after I graduated, they sold the business. So now what am I going to do? I saw two motivational speakers, Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins, and I thought, wow, I could do that because so you ought to know I did graduate from doing birthday parties to working in comedy clubs and nightclubs and doing corporate events through college. So I had this little bit of a idea of how to actually get up in front of people. I had a little business experience working with meeting planners and event planners. And I saw those two speakers. I said, I can create a speech. This could be really fun and interesting. So I go to the bookstore, and this again, 1983, might have been 82 actually.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. So there's like one little section of books in the whole bookstore devoted to business. And I'm pretty sure that in 1983, Tom Hopkins, not Tom Hopkins, Tom Peters wrote a book called In Search of Excellence. So I snagged that book, a couple other books on customer service. I seemed to be drawn to those books. And as I read them, I said, this is everything I've ever learned. When I worked in a restaurant, this is exactly the way I acted. When I had my own little magic show business, this is exactly what I did. So innately, I was drawn to that, maybe because my parents were teaching me little lessons, but I loved it. And how do you become an expert? I didn't go to college for this. My degree is in speech communications, writing certificate, marketing, minor, that kind of thing. But I just loved it. So as I learned from all the companies I worked for, I just started developing these case studies. I would keep them generic and not mention the company, but understand how successful companies were doing what they did in the world of customer service. And eventually that morphed into customer experience. But that's how it all started. To this day, I'm very clear with my clients. I did not run a customer service department, if you will. I did not manage, or I wasn't a CEO of a large company. But what I have done is worked with probably thousands, but at least hundreds of companies over the years that when I drill down and learn how they do it, I incorporate that into my speech. So this knowledge has been built up. Plus, I am a ferocious reader. I probably don't read quite as many books as I used to, but maybe 25, 30 a year. Every third or fourth book is a fiction book just to keep my creativity and everything. By the way, business books, easy to read. I can breeze through a business book unless it's so good that I have to read every word. Otherwise, the fiction books take a little bit longer. You'd think it'd be the other way around. Sure. But, and I also read about 8 to 10 articles a day, every day. So.
Well, I think that this is I love that this was your journey, right? Because you tuned into who you are, what really piqued your interest, something that you're not liking in the moment, but you really saw yourself liking long-term, thank goodness, because of how many decades you've been doing this now. But you tuned into who you are. And I think when we start with who, that is so central to longevity, especially as a speaker and a presenter. It's taxing, right? When you're maybe saying a lot of the same material over and over and over year in and year out, you better be interested in it and reading new materials. Yeah. Not only are you reading new materials, you're writing new materials. So that's really, I think, important for speakers to know that they don't necessarily have to be dubbed the expert first. You just be a couple steps ahead. You have the interest and read up and educate yourself. And that's basically what it sounds like you did.
Yeah. And when I think back, I mean, I cringe at some of the content that I created, but the clients liked it. And that's just because I have evolved. And it's not, I knew it was a bit of a risk for me to do what I was doing at my young age. And most speakers, they come out of another job. They decide they want to do it after they've been working somewhere else. I pretty much 4 months out of college, not sure what I'm going to do. okay, let me go find something. And then less than a year out of college, I'm starting my own business thinking I could make a living doing this. But, you know, there's something called the imposter syndrome. I never experienced that, but I always wondered, wow, I'm working for IBM. Now I'm only about 24 or 25 years old. And IBM, which was at the time the number one customer service company in the world, is hiring me to talk to their salespeople about selling with service. I get hired in the early 1990s. And by the way, had lots of clients, but I mean, the ones that stand out in the early 1990s, Disney hired me to talk to cast members about delivering great service. Disney. How does this happen? I just think they liked my perspective. And I also, you remember I did magic shows, right? I incorporate a little bit of entertainment into my speech. So even if I don't do any magic in the speech, people laugh. And I always joke with my clients, if they don't laugh, you don't have to pay me. And it's just, you know, and you're smiling and kind of in the inside probably laughing at that statement. But I will, in front of the audience, I say, here are my goals for today. And my last goal is, and we're going to have fun. And what that means is if you don't laugh, I don't get paid. And half the audience laughs at that. And I go, great, I'm getting paid today. And they laugh again. And it just kind of sets the tone and breaks the ice. So I had that entertainment background. And maybe that's what they wanted, was a good perspective that is has some sugar to make the medicine go down. Now today, with all the research, to make
the medicine go down.
That's what it is, you know, a nod to Mary Poppins, right? So today, I am a bit more, I guess I'm smarter. I've had experience. I do research, so there's a little bit of academic in there, but still, if the client just wants information, they might as well just buy a book. If they want a speaker that's going to deliver, that's going to set a tone, that's going to make people think, that's going to give them something to take action on after the speech is finished. And you know, again, reflecting back on just yesterday, I work with a bunch of general managers of retail organizations, about 400 and some odd locations. And I said, everything I talk about today, you already know. But I need you to take it back and share it with your team, because I'm going to give it to you with a different angle, a different way to think about it. And really, that's what who doesn't know what customer service is? You know what you like. So how do we teach people to make that happen all the time?
So good. So it's easy to see now how you get your engagements. You're an in-demand speaker. You've got tens of thousands of followers on LinkedIn alone, right? And across the socials. It's easy to see now, and you've got lots of the logos behind your name now of places that you spoke. But before you had that, Disney hired you, right? And there were some pretty big name organizations. How did you get those first few doors to open for you?
So today, it's the exact, if you are starting out, I would suggest doing almost the exact same thing, but there's a different way to get the connection. I would just pick up the phone and smile and dial. I went to the newsstand and I bought every magazine they had. I pulled out every full page ad. And I said, if they've got an ad that's that big, that means they probably have a meeting of people selling what's in that ad. So I just would go to the library, because this is back in 1980, 82, 83. They did not have the internet. So I had to go to the library and look on microfiche, or ask the librarian to help me find a directory of businesses that would give me the phone numbers and addresses. And then I would call and I'd get a receptionist or an operator of a larger company and say, who's the person in charge of meetings? Or a lot of times I could get a name through an article or through the directories, like who's the VP of marketing. So I would, marketing and sales, those were the people from larger companies that would typically hire me. And I would just call and introduce myself, tell them what I did. And back then, people were more accepting of taking a phone call. I had it all down to exact numbers. If I made 100 phone calls in a week, I'd probably connect with about 12 to 15 people. Of the 12 to 15 people, maybe 2 people would be interested in what I did. And for every 12 people that said they were interested, I would get 1 booking. I think that's about what the numbers are. Now think about that. So essentially about 6 weeks it took to get a booking, but it sounds like, well, my gosh, that means, you're maybe only doing, not even 10 speeches a year. No, because once you do a speech, it begets more speeches if you do a good job. This whole idea of smile and dial was simply a way to get the door open and start working. And we did phone calls all the way through, gosh, I'm going to say, I remember in 2008 and 9 when we had that bad dip in the economy. It wasn't so much me on the phone as my assistant was on the phone. By that time, you have to separate yourself a little bit from the actual prospecting. But today, the only difference is you're not going to pick up the phone and make a call. You're going to go on LinkedIn. You're going to try to find a way to build a relationship with a targeted group of people. So if you say, I want to speak with companies that are this size, the person that would hire me is head of HR or head of marketing or head of sales. So you start looking at all these profiles, and then you start finding, is there somebody in the demographic target that I'm looking for, the size company, the type of company, who is active on LinkedIn? And if they're active, I can start to engage with them without trying to sell them and just build the relationship. And it takes maybe a little bit longer, but at the same time, it's actually a little bit easier, because once you finally do get on a phone call or a Zoom call or any other kind of video call, once you're on that call, believe it or not, it's an easier sell. And I believe in helping, not selling. I believe in selling with service, which makes clients feel very comfortable. And what that means is I always do what I say I'm going to do. I show up. I tell them I'm going to follow up. I follow up when I follow up. I tell them I'm going to send them something. I always send what I'm supposed to send. So they always have this level of confidence about what I do. But so today, the big difference is you're using LinkedIn. I think it's easier because you don't have to fear rejection on the phone. If somebody doesn't respond to you, if somebody makes a post and you respond to them and they don't respond back to you, so what? You move on. Nothing personal. It's not the same as somebody talking to you and say, not interested. But by the way, when you're 22, 23 years old, you don't fear that kind of rejection because you're not smart enough to fear it.
So true, right? You didn't know that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, right? You didn't know you shouldn't be approaching Disney. And now, good on you that you went ahead.
Yeah, Disney and IBM, they came as a result of seeing me speak at other events. Okay. But
yes, it's a really great point.
First client I ever had, small beer company, Anheuser-Busch. Second client, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And by the way, it was only about 3 years ago was my last engagement with Anheuser-Busch. Might have even been 2 years ago, which that's a 39, almost 40-year client. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I did a lot of work with them. Probably my last one with them was just before the pandemic. General Motors was a big one. I actually flew up to Detroit, met with the person who would be hiring me. And after meeting that's a whole story about how I got that meeting. And again, I'm 23 years old. What am I supposed to be doing? I didn't know, this is a big deal to put on a suit and get on an airplane and fly up there. I just said, I read a book and it said, this is how you do it. And the book I read, by the way, was Mark McCormick's What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School. I love that book. I use some techniques, and it's an old book, but there's some great techniques in there. And I sat in front of this gentleman, and at the end, he goes, you know what? And if I remember, it's sometime around September 1983. And he goes, we've got some meetings in the fall of 1984. And I go, I didn't come all the way from St. Louis for you to wait a year to use me. Is there anything happening between now and then? He goes, wait a minute, you flew here from St. Louis? I go, yeah, I'm serious about working for you. And he goes, you know what? We've got something in January. And so walked away with a contract like that. And here's the coolest part. After January, they did use me the fall, and they booked me for anywhere from, I'm going to say on a slow year, it was maybe 30 days. But on a good year, it was 50 days a year through about 1988 or 89. So for about 4 or 5 years, I had a run with them, working with all these dealerships, going to some of the special events and association and even public. When they did the auto shows, I would go in and do some things there with them, work with them. So, and same thing, Anheuser-Busch. I booked my first speech with them, and I remember them saying, you could work for our own meetings, but we sponsor, events at associations like the, Ohio Grocers Association or the National Convenience Store Association. Why don't we see if we can sponsor you as a speaker as well as their cocktail party? Because they're a beer company. And I go, sure. And so I jokingly say, they go, well, what's your target market? I go, anywhere that sells beer. Because as I was doing speeches, let's say I did a speech for the National Association of Convenience Stores. Next thing you know, 10 convenience store organization chains, if you will, are calling me and asking me, hey, can you come to our meeting and speak to our employees, our GMs of the stores? So that's how it works.
Yes. Yes. Okay. There's a couple of things I would really love to dive a little bit deeper in before we start wrapping this up, because there was a lot of gold in what you just shared, Shep, and we could spend 2 hours. This is so much fun. You've got real life lived experience. Number one, you didn't just sit back and hope it was going to happen, right? You didn't just maybe send out a couple of letters, leave a couple of voice messages. You went as far as hopping on an airplane, and that became one of your longest running, right, engagements. Mm-hmm. You cared. Again, we're back at the who. Who are you? What is it that you want in your life? Who can you serve? Who can you make a big difference to? And you didn't just sit back. But what I love hearing from you right now is you're still not. Like, you have paid your dues. You're an OG in the speaking industry. You could be just kind of kicking back and waiting for the phone calls to come, but you're still putting that elbow grease out there. That is really what sets you apart, makes you relevant still in the space and in demand. So I just want to point that out, because I think that there's a lot of speakers that just think they can hire an agent, and I am an agent. So let's put that on the table, right? I understand that I'm more of a partner than a pull you alonger, right? If I'm with a speaker who's willing to put in their elbow grease as well, and we're in partnership to really get their name out there, that makes the difference between a speaker that has the most engagements and longevity in their career versus the diva who's sitting back wanting first class and just kind of being difficult to work with and wanting you to do everything for them.
Yeah. Well, I'm the customer service guy, so no diva attitude there. But don't treat me wrong either. And when I say wrong, I can go on and tell you stories. Today, everybody should know that I don't get on the phone, and I do engage in LinkedIn, but not at the same level of push as I did before. I have the other side of the strategy is pull. And gosh, I can't, I'm going to say 900 to 1,000 articles ago, I started writing a blog, a newsletter, which turned into a blog. And now I post on my website and send out as a newsletter. And I take that content and repurpose it multiple ways. And I think one of the reasons I get called today is because of my thought leadership and my expertise that I'm recognized for. And that comes from me having the discipline to sit down every week to create content. And if you start off and you want to go fast, you push. But at the same time, I believe it's important to start establishing yourself as an expert. You do that through writing, through video work. And by the way, I write first and then I create videos from what I write. I suggest that people who aren't comfortable writing, but just look into a camera and talk about a topic for a few minutes. And that becomes a video post on YouTube, and then take that, transcribe it, and edit it, or let somebody else edit it if you hate editing. And by the way, I'm great at writing like I speak, which is a terrible way to write. But I have found this person on Upwork that for $8 to $10 an article, she will edit every article and make it grammatically almost perfect. It would get me an A in English class. So
between the internet and the resources that we have for help and AI, right? We have really no excuses anymore not to get our expertise out there.
Yeah. So that's
you're doing it in multi-level. Yeah, that's amazing that you are still doing that you are getting you're on podcasts, you're getting your expertise out there. These are things that are quote unquote unpaid, right? But the dividends are really huge if you're willing to continue to get your voice out there, and you're helping along the way. I love what you said. You're all about helping first. Selling comes as a result. But if you help first, you really have that attitude, and you can see that through you, right?
Well, thank
It's
you.
not put on; it's authentic.
And even with clients, I'm the first one to say, I believe I could be a great speaker for you. But if for some reason you don't think I am, I'm still on your team. I will help you find a colleague of mine that I know, that I've seen speak, even if it's a completely different topic. I was fortunate to be the president of the National Speakers Association, which meant there's several thousand speakers that I've been hanging out with and know. So I don't know if I could get you somebody in underwater basket weaving, but I know I can find somebody on some pretty crazy topics. And I tell my clients this, and I have clients that booked me 1 year and they call me every single year, not only to ask me who I would recommend as a speaker for a specific topic, which, by the way, if they're still calling me, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to come back and do a round 2 with them. But they also, believe it or not, will say, hey, what resorts have you been to lately that you think we should go to for our meeting in 2 years? And I went, wow, now that to me is true partnership, where they trust you at that level. And I'm so flattered and honored when that happens.
So speaking of NSA, and I did not know you were the president, and that's a bit of a big deal.
Like, not that's the president, a president.
A president.
Well, you only get 1 year.
That takes some doing,
now it's a
right?
2-year term. It's a 2-year sentence. Okay.
2-year sentence. Is NSA today what it was when you started out, and it really kind of gave you that umption of what you needed to get started? Is it the same NSA? Because it comes with a cost. Is it worth the cost for speakers who are serious?
Yeah. Well, I think you just said the right thing. For speakers who are serious, why wouldn't you be a member of the association that is the only association, really, that is of that level about your industry? When I started, and this is a real important message, and I know where I have a little bit more time than I expected today if you want to go a little bit longer on this, but I think it's important. When I started, speaking was what everybody at NSA did. They were keynote speakers, maybe they were trainers, but they spoke. Over the years, the business has morphed into allowing you to make money in many different areas. So I look at all my revenue streams and look at what happened during COVID. I never left I got on an airplane, never set my foot on a stage. I made almost as much money as I did any other year, doing virtual events, writing assignments. I'm very creative. I have about 10 different things that I did. And I looked at, wow, I would let people sponsor my blog, sponsor my YouTube channel. It was crazy. But anyway, back in the day, when I was young, it was really the speaking business. Today,
we held hot potatoes in our hands.
Right. We're swapping leads for keynote speeches. Today, boy, I can't swap leads with my mastermind group because we all do such different things. We have so many diverse business models. And so, but back to NSA, this is what NSA is today. You will go to programs, not just on how to be a better speaker and make and market yourself better, but you'll go on how to make derivative products. How do you create videos that get you booked? Like if you do YouTube videos, how do you do content marketing, which positions you as a thought leader? There's so many different ways. This is an interesting thing. I know you've got a great. Well, actually, I'm going to hold out because I know your last question is going to what take action, but
yes.
There's so many different things I could tell you to take action on, but I think it's imperative to diversify your business model, because if you get into another recession and people aren't booking as much, or God forbid, we're in a pandemic, or there's a terrorist attack that eliminates bookings for a certain period of time, if not maybe ever. In 2001, after 9/11, I thought to myself, we're one terrorist attack away from the annihilation of the speaking business as a keynote speaker would know it. Who's going to want to send their team to a hotel if there's a potential terrorist problem? So I took all my content and created a training product with it, because you go to their offices in their training room to do training. They don't have to go to a resort to do that. And then I started hiring other trainers to do my training. And so, it just kind of snowballs into multiple streams of revenue. And I think it's so important to be thinking about that.
Oh gosh, we need another time together because there's so many questions that are building up. I'm going to go this direction though, just because. What is the best use? How do you really get the most out of your experience with NSA? Because there's meetings, there's different things. What are the tactical kind of insider insights that if you're going to really invest your most unrenewable resource of time, do this?
Yeah, it's about $1,000 a year, I think, to join. And two things: I would be a joiner and a participator. Okay, so participate, number one. Number two, maybe you can't get to the meetings. Maybe it's too expensive to fly to a meeting at this point in an early career, but they have something called the Vault. The Vault has videos and assets from past meetings. So you can catch all the keynote speeches, some of the breakouts, the assets they have, examples of contracts, licensing contracts, speech contracts. So different assets that you would use, probably templates for books and all kinds of information. So the Vault is worth far more than your membership dues, that's for sure. But to really get value out of it beyond that, go to a meeting. Going to a speaker's conference is not going to get you a speaking engagement because people there aren't going to say, I'm going to book you. But it's like, give a man a speech or a person a speech. You'll feed them for the day. Teach them how to get a speech. That's the old, teach a person to fish. You give a person a fish, they get a meal. But teach a person to fish, they eat for a lifetime. And you'll go to classes and workshops, but also you'll network with other speakers who are your friends. And here's the thing. There is nobody on the planet that understands the speaker's life better than another speaker. As a matter of fact, most people can't even relate to it. So if you've got an issue, a problem, a question, you're not going to call a friend who's in a different type of business and say, can you help me with this? I mean, if it's a standard business question, of course they can help. But this is a huge opportunity to network, get to know people, become friends with people. And I think today, I used to go thinking I'm going to get a lot of ideas to enhance my business. Now I come back with one or two index cards filled with really simple ideas. Maybe there's 4 or 5. And those are the ones that are going to take me to the next level. There's a reason I have a successful on-demand course. There's a reason I've been successful in social media. It's not because I came up with this on my own. I learned from all the others who are doing it, my colleagues at the National Speakers Association. I'm a huge fan of NSA, if you can't tell.
Yes. Oh gosh. And the true expert is also the true student. And you've kept that spirit, that through line all the way through. Okay. So I have a final question for you. Okay. And then of course our signature question. But before I get into that, which of your 8 books would be the best starting point for our listeners? Because speaking is a business. If you treat it like a business, you're going to grow, right? And you have to treat the people well, right? That are associated with that business. What would be the best starting point for a speaker really beginning to grow?
I'm going to give you 3 answers. And the first is, if you write a book that's based on your speech, it's a great expensive business card, brochure, whatever you want to call it, because this is what I talk about. The next, so that was what Moments of Magic was all about. One of my books, The Cult of the Customer, is really my whole philosophy. And I actually include all of the training exercises that I created for my training product. And this is a great book because it's a much deeper dive. But there's another book, and again, I've written 8 of them. But the one that really, when I want to send something to a client, it's titled Amaze Every Customer Every Time. And it has 52 tools and broke it into 8 sections. And this is what I love. I send the book to the client and I say, I am going to do a top 10 list. Why don't you choose the 10 most important tools that you think your audience needs to hear? And let's work those into the speech. And they love that. So I would say if you can write a book that incorporates a list of, tactics or strategies, then say to the client, which of these do you like? I'll incorporate that in. I think that's a great way to make the client feel their custom. It's a customized speech that's personalized, and it really makes them feel like you're listening to them. And I think that's really important. So I don't know if that's the answer you wanted. Maybe you're looking for one, but
well, I'm going to go get all three of them.
You don't need to get all three.
and I want your new one. I'm going to get those three and your newest one as well, just because I think that we underestimate how important that spirit of service is, even as a speaker, right? If you really get those relationships, the concept of relationships down, then doors open for you even more.
And okay,
so my final question before the final question, you go ahead.
I would just want to say
go ahead.
As service goes, if there's one idea in customer service or experience that I would share with this group today, and this isn't for the final question, this is just as you're talking about service, is I would say communication. But number one in communication is responding freaky fast, like Jimmy John fast. If you go to the fast food restaurant, Jimmy John, how quickly do you respond to the inquiry that comes in? How fast do you return a phone call? And when you land on site, how quick are you to let the client, text them as you're heading to the hotel? Just want to let you know, I've landed and I'm on my way. Just so they don't have to worry about it. When they tell you the tech check is at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, don't show up at 7:30, show up at 7:20. Just set the tone and be proactive with the communication. So.
That is amazing advice. To be on time is to be early. To be okay. Wait, there's this beautiful
Lombardi
thing.
Time. So 15 minutes earlier, you're late.
Exactly. I love that. Golly, I'm not even going to go there because you spurred another question. We'll talk about another time.
But we have an extra few minutes. Really, we can.
Okay, so there are conferences, seminars, associations, nonprofits. I love that you even brought up sponsors of events, right? That they need speakers to represent them. Where is the best place of an emerging speaker to really begin? Because there's competition in all of those spaces.
Yeah.
So the given is you join NSA and you get Shep Hyken's books. What are the first doors you should be knocking on?
Wow. Well, I'd love if everybody bought a book, but at the same time, the book's not about the speaking business. So I think there's definite content that you'll enjoy and you'll be able to put into use. When I first started out, my friend Bud Dietrich, a magician, an older gentleman, was like my mentor. And I came from the magic background, as you know. And when I told him I'm going to be a speaker, he goes, and he was doing all corporate work, which was some of the work I was doing in college, where I would be performing at a corporate event, a cocktail reception, a trade show, whatever. Anyway, Bud said, you need to treat the job like it's a real job. So for 40 hours a week, you should be thinking about how you're going to get business. You can practice and write and create your content in the evenings and on the weekends. So that's number one, to keep that in mind. Number two, he says, perform as often as possible. So in other words, work and speak as often as possible. I called all the chambers, all the places that I thought might hire me, and I didn't care if they had $5 or $500. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to practice. And then I had friends, and I was young, but I had friends that were maybe 10 years older than me that had, like one of my very, very good friends had a restaurant business, and he had several restaurants. So I said, hey, when are you going to have your next managers meeting? Well, they have them monthly. Can I come at no charge and do 15 minutes because I need to get feedback on this content? So this is really important. And as you're doing a speech, whether you're getting paid a small fee or even doing it for free or a regular fee, if somebody's not coming up to you on a somewhat regular basis, now not every speech is going to have this. If you go to speak at a corporate event and everybody in the audience is an employee, those employees are not going to walk up to you and say, hey, can you come to my meeting? But if you are at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and somebody walks up and says, what would you charge to come and do that for my company? Now you know you're good enough to get booked. Next thing is, what do I charge? That's a whole nother conversation we can have. But I believe that's where you really start to go. Even today, I usually do 2 or 3 no fee speeches, because these are the people that I absolutely want to get in front of, because they are going to hire me. And if I don't walk away with 2 or 3 bookings from these speeches, I have to think it wasn't the right audience. I shouldn't go back there again, or I'm not good enough. But hopefully I am good enough. There's an organization I work with. I did 8 years in a row of the International Franchise Association. And they always said, look, we pay every speaker exactly the same, far lower than my regular fee. Normally, I would say, just cover my expenses and give the rest to charity. But they just didn't grasp that, because I believe you do it for your fee, or you do it for free, or you flee. And that came from Connie Podesta, my friend. Fee, free, or flee. So if I want to do this speech and you've got a lot less money than what I charge, I would say, hey, why don't we donate that money to a charity that we can mutually agree upon? Here are the ones that I like. Do you have an objection to that? No. Now they make a charitable contribution. I go and do the speech. Everybody's happy. I'm in front of the audience I want to be in front of, and ideally spinning off into more business from that. So anyway, I digress on that one. Did I answer the question?
You did,
I
and
spin
in
it
spades.
like a politician into something else, but if I did it by accident.
Brilliant marketing plan, right? Your next best talk is at the talk you're at. So It's okay if it's free, if it's strategic, you're going to be in front of the right people. I love that you brought that up, because I do come across quite a few speakers who I will not speak for free. And done right, no talk is free, right? You just may not be getting that host
you've
check.
got to really take a look at it. I remember Mark French passed away, but he was the founder of Leading Authorities. And when he was just him and one other, it was like an assistant, very small. He invited me to a conference. He goes, Shep, you're going to pay your way here. I'm going to meet you there. We're going to have dinner. You're going to do this. And I know we're going to book 10 speeches in the next year together from this conference. And we didn't book 10, but we booked like 5 or 6. And that was okay with me. But it started off, it started off really well. We've got to be willing to do that. And even today, I'm involved with something, with the contact center organization, CCW, because contact center work, customer, care work, that's part of my world. And I'm on their advisory board. I'm honored to be there. I fly there on my own dollar. They asked me to get up and do a presentation or doing something. I am happy to do it, no charge, because I'm in that business that far into the industry, it has really been beneficial for me to be there.
Yes. Okay. This has been such a beneficial time. Speaking of beneficial, so rich. Your insights are hard earned. Thank you for spending your time with us today and just being so generous with your information. I could seriously just grab some coffee with you one day and spend hours, because really deep insider insights that can only come from having towed the row, right? So speaking of that, I would love for you to leave our audience, right? This is SpeakPact, with a pact, with something tangible and tactical that they can do to really take their speaking careers to that next level, whether we're emerging and wanting to scale, or we're already there and want to scale to that next level. What are some tactical things that they might do, or a tactical thing that they can do?
Yeah. Well, how about this? I'm going to give you 3 ideas for the price of 1. Okay. Remember I mentioned Bud Dietrich, who said spend 40 hours a week working at getting business. What he was saying, I'm going to sum it up in 1 sentence. I paraphrase everything he gave me into 1 sentence. The job's not doing the speech, it's getting the speech. So we talked about what I did early on and how we're using LinkedIn. So number 2 is look at that pull method and create a content marketing strategy. And I would say a minimum of once a week, you're creating content, and the content can be repurposed. If you do an article, turn it into a video by simply, essentially almost reading the article into the camera or going the other way around. Now you've got 2 assets you're going to post. So you've got content creation, which we call creating the content. Then you've got activation, which is putting it into the YouTube channel, into your blog, a newsletter. And then you've got amplification, which is promoting it. So much of what we do, the idea is you take an article, you pull little lines out of it, and they become quotes that you can, I don't know, you still tweet on X or you just X. If you place them on Facebook, you can create a meme. Believe it or not, I am on Pinterest. I take some quotes from an article, I make it look pretty, and we put it on Pinterest. I get over 1 million people a year looking at my quotes. So look at the content marketing strategy. And finally, number 3, because I promised you 3 things for the price of 1. 3 would be, if all you do is speak in the speaking business, you could go out of business. So take a look at the ancillary income opportunities. It could be the book. It could be that you do virtuals. You mainly keynotes, but you're willing to do training. Maybe you create an on-demand training product. Find different ways that you can leverage your expertise. For example, this podcast. I love podcasting. I've been doing my own podcast since 2014. Guess what? Clients ask me to host their podcast. So now I'm a podcast host. And to me, that's like a speaking engagement. It's just, and this is what you learn when you can't get on an airplane because there's a pandemic and get on a stage. You find other ways to leverage what you're good at. So think about that as, what are the other ways that you can build your business other than just the core thing that you think you're doing right now?
So much gold there. I just took 3 pages of notes. And, I'm on TikTok. I've never even seen my own channel. So that's a really good point. Like, my people put my clips on TikTok, and apparently we've got a following, and I've never even been there. So why not? Yeah, there's 20 quotes you just said just here that are valuable for people.
And that's perfect proof. Your job is to create content. And if you have a team that can help you, or one person, and you can hire a virtual assistant, you can go to overseas to get a virtual assistant and pay really, get 20 hours a week for somebody, $5 an hour. And they will help you activate, which is posting your content and amplifying it, which means they're promoting it in all the different social channels. And that leaves you to do the core foundational thing that you're really, really good at, which is writing and speaking.
Yes. Truly valuable time with you today, Shep. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom. You're welcome. Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply #SpeakPact.